Why did the room go quiet the moment she stopped answering questions? The emergency bay was loud until it wasn't. Monitors kept their rhythm, shoes squeaked on linoleum, voices overlapped. Then there was her silence, not the unconscious kind, the chosen kind. She lay on the gurney with her jaw set, eyes fixed on a cracked ceiling tile as if it were something she had memorized long ago. Blood dried along her forearm, her shoulder sat wrong. Ribs complained every time she breathed. Still nothing. No groan, no request, no flinch. The nurse asked her pain level. She said she was fine. The resident offered relief. She refused, calm, controlled, almost distant. People like that made doctors uneasy. Pain was supposed to announce itself. Fear was supposed to leak. But she kept it all locked down, as if the hospital were just another place to pass through on the way to something more important. When the trauma surgeon finally sat beside her, he noticed the details others missed. The way she counted breaths when they rolled her, the way her fingers flexed on instinct when equipment clanged too close, the way her eyes never fully rested. He had seen that look before, in tents lit by headlamps, in places where help came late and consequences came fast. She gave her name when asked. Sarah Mitchell, nothing else, not the why, not the past, not the weight she carried like a second spine. In X-ray she moved with the precision of someone trained to obey through pain. The tech noticed old scars layered beneath the new ones, history written in bone and metal. He asked the question casually. Military, her jaw tightened. Used to be, that was all. Back in the bay, images revealed more than a motorcycle crash, healed fractures, surgical marks, shrapnel shadows that didn't belong to the road. When the surgeon returned, she stared at the ceiling again, pretending the present was simple. He spoke to her the way one veteran speaks to another without ceremony. "Two tour," he said, "field hospitals, Afghanistan." Her eyes shifted for the first time. "Helmand," she whispered, "3 deployments, corpsman." The word landed heavy, not just a medic, one of the ones who ran forward. She tried to sit up when the IV came near, refused medication like it was a test she had learned not to fail. He stopped the resident, sent her away, stayed. He understood the rules she lived by. Don't be a burden. Don't show weakness. Don't slow the mission. When he asked who she was trying to stay strong for, her answer came out thin and sharp. The ones who didn't make it home. Why would someone hurt this badly be more afraid of resting than of breaking? She closed her eyes as if the question itself had weight. There were people counting on her, she said, not family, not employers, veterans, a support group she helped run, men who woke up screaming, men who drank too much and slept too little, men who trusted her because she had been there and didn't look away. Tonight one of them was in trouble. She'd been on her way when a teenager ran a red light. She hadn't called anyone, wouldn't let the doctor call either. If they knew she was hurt, they'd blame themselves, and some of them were already standing on the edge. "Sleep?" the surgeon asked. "When was the last time you slept?" She stared at the wall. 3 hours, 4 maybe, nightmares, or just lying there replaying everything she should have done differently. He recognized the signs. Someone running on fumes, convinced stopping meant failure. When a knock came at the door and a gray-haired man asked for her by name, she panicked. "Frank," she said. "Another vet. If he was here, something was wrong." The surgeon let him in. Frank didn't pretend. He saw the injuries and didn't accept the deflection. He also didn't coddle. They had a problem, he said. A young Marine had spiraled during group, panicked so bad he couldn't breathe. Sedated, sent home, no real help. The kid had asked for her. Sarah tried to rise, pain flaring. The surgeon stopped her. "Rest." Frank shook his head. "She saved more lives than most people ever would," he said. The surgeon didn't disagree. He just asked who would save her. Silence answered first. What happens when the strongest person in the room finally admits she's tired? Frank asked the question she'd been dodging. What happened over there? Not the sanitized version, not the job description, the truth. She stared at her hands until her knuckles went white. Then she spoke like she was reading coordinates from memory. "Recon unit, valley north of Sangin, intelligence wrong, ambush, 18 hours pinned down, no air support, no backup, 12 Marines in her." One by one they went down. She moved between them with dwindling supplies while shots cracked the dirt around her boots. By hour 12, 7 wounded. By the end, only 3 walked out. 9 didn't. Her voice stayed flat until it didn't. She lost them, she said. Lost them because she wasn't fast enough, smart enough, good enough. The surgeon watched her vitals climb and let her speak anyway. Frank told her what she couldn't hear from herself, that it wasn't her fault that 3 families still had sons because of her. She shook her head. It was never enough. It never would be. The surgeon said the thing that hurts because it's true. You can't save everyone. What matters is that you did everything you could with what you had. She looked away, unconvinced. After the war, she said, civilian life felt small. The group gave her a reason to get up. Helping others made the guilt quiet, at least for a while. Frank said she'd been carrying everyone alone. Enabling, really. Letting them lean so she didn't have to look at herself. When the surgeon stepped out, Frank stayed. He said what Marines would say to a corpsman who tried to punish herself forever. They wouldn't want this. They'd want her to live, to heal, to be happy. She cried then. Quiet at first. Then all at once. Years of control loosening in a hospital bed that smelled like antiseptic and regret. Falling apart, Frank said, might be necessary. When the surgeon returned, something had shifted. She looked more fragile, also more honest. He laid out the plan: rest, therapy, time. She bristled until he asked what she would have done for a Marine with the same injuries. The answer came automatically. She'd make him get help, even if he insisted he was fine, especially then. The contradiction hung there, undeniable. A knock interrupted them. A young man stood in the doorway, eyes red, posture tight. Marcus, the Marine from Group. He needed to understand what was happening to him. Sarah straightened despite the pain. Sit down, she said gently. Tell me about tonight. As he spoke, her voice steadied. She named the panic for what it was, taught him to breathe, to ground, to come back. The room watched her do what she did best, even injured, even exhausted. The surgeon saw it clearly then. Purpose heals, but only when it doesn't consume. What if the mission didn't require her to be everywhere at once? The idea came softly: train others, build a system that didn't collapse when she did, let people help each other. Marcus said it himself. If she taught them, the work could continue without breaking her. The thought terrified her. Control had been her armor, but fear wasn't the same as danger. Frank reminded her she'd missed tonight's crisis because she was in an accident. What happened next time? She agreed to try. Medication, the surgeon said. Physical therapy. 2 weeks off. She protested. They didn't move. Marcus offered to help build the program. Write it down. Warning signs, de-escalation. What actually helps? The surgeon asked the harder question. Had she ever talked about how it felt? Not the facts, the feelings. She admitted therapy had made it real. Staying busy had been easier. Frank said she wasn't avoiding pain, she was living in it. PTSD, the surgeon said gently, highly functional, common in caregivers. She resisted the label until the symptoms lined up like evidence. Nightmares, hypervigilance, avoidance, overwork. Numbing it didn't weaken her, it explained her. The plan solidified: stay overnight, heal, refer out, build the team, come back as a mentor, not a lifeline. 3 months later, the chairs formed a circle without her arranging them. She stood at the front, shoulder heeled, eyes clearer. Marcus sat to her right, Frank to her left. 12 veterans shared the load. A buddy system replaced the late-night panic calls. Peer counselors stepped in. The ripple spread. She took a part-time job teaching crisis intervention. The VA asked her to scale the program. Letters written to the 9 updates, not apologies, finally loosened the knot in her chest. She listened as the group talked without her leading every word. Pride warmed her, clean and light. This was healing, not heroics, community. Outside, the night was quiet. She slept 7 hours now, 8 real meals, planned weekends. When asked how she felt, she searched herself and found the answer waiting, like herself, or maybe for the first time fully. The accident, she realized, had forced her to stop, to accept help, to learn that strength could be shared without being diminished. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. Why did the silence feel heavier once she finally spoke? The moment her words left her mouth, the room didn't rush to fill the space. It slowed, Like everyone instinctively understood that whatever came next deserved room to breathe. Sarah felt it too, the subtle shift from noise to attention, from routine to something more fragile. She hated that feeling, hated being the reason people leaned in. She focused on her breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, the same rhythm she had used under tracer fire, the same rhythm she used now to keep her hands from shaking. Dr. Chen didn't interrupt. That mattered more than he knew. Too many people tried to fix things the moment they sensed pain. He didn't. He just stayed, grounded, letting her set the pace. Frank did the same, his presence solid, familiar, like a wall you could lean against without worrying it would move. Sarah broke the quiet again, softer this time. "You don't understand," she said. "If I stop, everything falls apart." It wasn't dramatic. It was a statement of fact, at least the way she saw it. In her world, momentum was survival. Pausing meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering. Remembering meant drowning. Dr. Chen leaned back slightly, giving her space. "Tell me what falls apart." She swallowed. The group, the calls, the guys who don't trust anyone else yet. The ones who only show up because they know I'll be there. A beat. "I promised them." Frank frowned. "You promised to help, not to destroy yourself." Sarah shook her head. "They don't see it that way. They see me as steady. If I wobble, they panic." "And what happens when you break?" Frank asked quietly. The question landed harder than she expected, because some part of her already knew the answer. She had felt it coming for months, the fatigue that sleep couldn't fix, the edge in her voice, the way even small noises made her flinch. She just hadn't allowed herself to name it. Dr. Chen glanced at her chart, then back to her face. "You've been living like you're still deployed." That got her attention. "Always on," he continued. "Always scanning, always responsible, but you're home now." "Doesn't feel like it," she replied. "No," he agreed. "It wouldn't, not after what you described." Her eyes drifted to the window. Night pressed against the glass, city lights blurring into something almost distant. She wondered how many nights she had spent staring into darkness, waiting for something bad to happen simply because it always had before. Frank shifted in his chair. "Sarah, I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it." She didn't answer, but she nodded. "When those Marines trusted you, what did that trust mean?" She didn't hesitate. "It meant they believed I'd do everything in my power to keep them alive." "And did you?" Her jaw tightened. "Yes." "Even when it wasn't enough?" "Yes." Frank leaned forward. "Then why doesn't that same standard apply to you now?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The answer that came automatically, because it's different, felt hollow the moment she examined it. Different how? Because she was the one hurting, because no one else would die if she collapsed, or because somewhere along the way she decided her life was worth less than everyone else. Dr. Chen watched the realization cross her face. He didn't push. He waited. "I don't know how to stop," she finally admitted. There it was, the truth beneath the discipline, beneath the training, beneath the armor. "I've only ever known how to keep going." The words trembled, not with fear, with exhaustion. A knock interrupted them, gentle but insistent. Nurse Jessica stepped in, eyes flicking between the three of them. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "but there's someone asking for you again. He says it's urgent." Sarah's shoulders stiffened. "Frank." Frank shook his head. "Already here." Dr. Chen asked the question. "Name?" "Marcus," Jessica replied. "He looks scared." Something in Sarah's chest twisted. The surgeon saw it immediately. "This is the Marine from earlier." Frank nodded. "The one with the panic attack." Sarah pushed herself upright despite the sharp protest from her ribs. "Let him in." "Sarah," Dr. Chen began. "I know," she said, already bracing herself. "Just let him in." Marcus entered slowly, like someone stepping onto unstable ground. His movements were careful, controlled, but his eyes gave him away, wide, searching, afraid of his own thoughts. He stopped short when he saw her injuries. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't know you were hurt." "It's okay," she replied. Her voice softened without effort. "Sit down." He did, perching on the edge of the chair, hands clasped tight. "They said I was fine, that it was just anxiety, but it didn't feel fine." "No," she said gently, "it never does." He looked at her then, really looked, as if noticing for the first time that she wasn't invincible. "How do you live with it?" The question hit her unexpectedly hard. She could have given him the polished answer, the one she always used: one day at a time, find purpose, stay busy, but lying suddenly felt heavier than telling the truth. "Sometimes," she said slowly, "you don't live with it, you survive it, and then you learn over time." He nodded, absorbing that. "I thought I was weak." Sarah met his gaze. "You're not." "How do you know?" "Because you came here, instead of pretending it didn't happen." Dr. Chen watched as her posture changed, not straighter but steadier. This wasn't adrenaline. This was meaning. He also noticed the cost, the slight hitch in her breath, the way her fingers pressed into the mattress to ground herself. She taught Marcus to breathe. In for 4, hold, out for 6. Name 5 things you can see, for you can feel. His shoulders slowly dropped. Color returned to his face. "I feel stupid," Marcus admitted. She shook her head. "You're injured, just not where people can see it." Frank crossed his arms, watching both of them. The irony wasn't lost on him. She was bleeding and still healing others. But this time, something was different. This time, she wasn't pretending it was easy. When Marcus left, calmer but thoughtful, the room settled again. Dr. Chen spoke first. "That's exactly why you can't keep doing this alone." Sarah exhaled. "I know." The admission surprised her as much as it did them. "I really do." Frank smiled faintly. "That's new." She managed a weak smile back. "Don't get used to it." But the truth lingered. The image of Marcus, young, shaken, searching, overlapped with memories she hadn't let surface in years. Young Marines calling for her in the dark. The same fear, the same trust. Dr. Chen closed her chart. "You're not being asked to quit, you're being asked to adapt." She frowned. "Adapt how?" "By doing what you've always done," he said. "Train others, share the load." The idea echoed again, louder now, less abstract. She pictured the group room, the circle of chairs, faces turning to her for answers. What if they turned to each other instead? "I'm afraid," she admitted. Frank nodded. "Good, means it matters." "Afraid that if I step back," she continued, "I won't be needed anymore." The words felt shameful as soon as she said them. Frank didn't flinch. "We all want to matter." Dr. Chen added quietly, "But being needed isn't the same as being valued." She let that settle. Outside, a siren wailed, distant but familiar. Life kept moving, indifferent to her internal reckoning. For the first time, she didn't feel compelled to chase it. "I don't know who I am if I'm not the strong one," she said. Frank stood, placing a hand on the bedrail. "You're still strong. You're just finally letting that strength include yourself." Sarah closed her eyes. For a brief moment the valley returned, the dust, the noise, the impossible choices. Then it faded, replaced by a hospital room, a steady monitor, 3 men who refused to let her disappear into duty. Maybe strength wasn't about never breaking. Maybe it was about knowing when to stop holding everything alone. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of her mission. It was the beginning of a different one. Why did the memories choose that moment to come back? It wasn't a sound or a smell that triggered them. No slammed door, no echoing shout, just the quiet, the dangerous kind, the kind that leaves space for the past to stretch its legs. Sarah lay back against the hospital bed, eyes open but unfocused, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. The room felt smaller now, like the walls had leaned in while no one was looking. Dr. Chen had stepped out to handle another case. Frank had gone to make a phone call. For the first time since she arrived, she was alone. That was when it started. Not images at first, sensations, heat under the skin, the phantom weight of a pack digging into her shoulders, the taste of dust that never quite went away. Her fingers twitched, remembering movements they hadn't made in years. Tourniquet, pressure, count the breaths, don't think, don't feel. She squeezed her eyes shut. Too late. The valley came back in fragments, broken pieces that never arrived in order. Jensen's voice, strained but calm, asking if he was going to be okay. Martinez swearing through clenched teeth, trying to joke while blood soaked the dirt. The smell metallic and sharp, mixing with cordite and fear. She could hear herself shouting, giving instructions, forcing steadiness into every word because panic was contagious and she couldn't afford an outbreak. Her heart rate spiked. The monitor noticed before she did. Sarah forced herself to ground. 5 things you can see: white ceiling, cracked tile, IV pole, curtain rail, her own hands. 4 things you can feel: mattress, cool air, the ache in her ribs, the pulse in her throat. It helped a little. She opened her eyes just as Frank stepped back in. One look at her face and he knew. "You went somewhere," he said quietly. She didn't bother denying it. "I didn't mean to." "Never do." He pulled his chair closer, not crowding her, just there. Presence without pressure. She had always been good at that for others. Being on the receiving end felt unfamiliar, uncomfortable. "They come back more often when I stop moving," she said. "That's why I stay busy." Frank nodded. "Running only works until your legs give out." She let out a humorless breath. "Mine already did, just took me a while to notice." A nurse slipped in to adjust the IV. Sarah tensed automatically, muscles coiling for a threat that wasn't there. The nurse noticed and slowed her movements, voice gentle. When she left, the quiet returned, but it no longer felt quite as sharp. Frank studied her for a moment. "You ever think about what would have happened if you'd been someone else that day?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" "If your unit had a different corpsman, someone less stubborn, less relentless." Sarah swallowed. She knew exactly what he was implying. They wouldn't have lasted as long. "Exactly," Frank said, "but you don't give yourself credit for that." Credit felt dangerous, like arrogance, like tempting fate. Dr. Chen returned a few minutes later, coffee in hand, eyes flicking instinctively to the monitor. "You okay?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "I had a moment." He accepted that without comment, sat down. Those moments tend to show up when the body finally feels safe enough to let them. Safe, the word felt foreign. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier," he continued, "about not knowing how to stop." She watched him carefully, and I think part of the problem is that you don't trust rest. To you, rest looks like abandonment." That landed uncomfortably close to the truth. "When you were deployed," he said, "rest meant someone else was exposed. Someone else could get hurt. So your nervous system learned that stillness equals danger." Sarah stared at the wall. "So what? I'm broken." "No," he said immediately. "You're conditioned. There's a difference." Frank smiled faintly. Doctors love that word. "It matters," Dr. Chen replied, "because conditioning can be undone, slowly, with work." Sarah's chest tightened, work she understood, healing less so. Another knock at the door. This time it was Nurse Jessica again, expression careful. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's been a change. The young man, Marcus, he's back. He's asking if he can talk to you again." Sarah felt the familiar pull. The instinct to say yes without question, to ignore the ache in her ribs and the exhaustion pressing behind her eyes. Dr. Chen watched her closely. "You don't have to." She hesitated. For the first time, she actually considered saying no. Then she thought of Marcus's face, the fear, the relief when the breathing slowed, the way his shoulders had dropped when someone finally understood. "I want to," she said, "but not like before." Frank raised an eyebrow, meaning I'm not doing this alone. Dr. Chen nodded once, good. Marcus came in looking steadier than before, though his hands still betrayed nervous energy. He stopped when he saw Dr. Chen and Frank. Am I interrupting? No, Sarah said, you're joining. She gestured for him to sit. He did, glancing between them. I keep thinking about what you said, Marcus admitted, about surviving first, learning later. She nodded, it takes time. I don't want to waste it, he said. I don't want to end up stuck. The word stuck echoed in her head. She knew it well. What would not being stuck look like to you? Dr. Chen asked, drawing Marcus into the conversation. Marcus thought for a moment. Sleeping without feeling like something bad's about to happen, not jumping every time a car backfires, being able to sit with people without feeling like I need to leave. Sarah felt a strange ache in her chest, not pain, recognition. Those are reasonable goals, she said, and they're possible. How do you know? Because I've seen people get there, she replied honestly. And because you're already doing the hardest part, you're talking. Marcus looked down. I don't feel brave. Bravery isn't how it feels, Frank said. It's what you do while you're scared. Dr. Chen glanced at Sarah. This is what we were talking about earlier. Teaching doesn't mean carrying, it means guiding. Sarah took a breath. Marcus, if you're willing, I'd like you to help me with something. His eyes widened slightly. Me. Yes, I can't be at every meeting. I can't take every call, but I can teach you what I know, and you can help others the way you were helped tonight. The idea seemed to both excite and terrify him. What if I mess it up? She met his gaze. Then we adjust. No one expects perfection. That's a myth that gets people hurt. She paused, choosing her next words carefully, including me. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Respect, yes, but also relief. The knowledge that the person helping him wasn't untouchable. I'd like that, he said finally. When he left, the room felt lighter, not empty, lighter. Frank leaned back in his chair. You see what you did there? She frowned. What? You let someone see you as human. She considered that. It felt risky, also right. Dr. Chen stood. I'm going to be honest with you, Sarah. Tonight could have gone very differently. You could have doubled down, refused help, walked out against medical advice. She gave a tired half-smile. I thought about it. I figured, he said, but you didn't, that matters. The adrenaline that had carried her through the night began to fade, replaced by a deep, bone-level weariness. She felt it settling in, heavy but not overwhelming. I'm scared, she admitted quietly, that if I slow down, everything I've been holding back will catch up to me. Frank stood and placed a hand on her shoulder, careful of the injury. It will, but you won't be alone when it does. Dr. Chen nodded. And when it comes, it won't be an enemy. It'll be information, something to work through. Sarah closed her eyes. For the first time, she didn't push the memories away. She let them hover at the edges, acknowledged but not consuming. Maybe stopping didn't mean failing. Maybe it meant finally giving herself the same care she had given everyone else. The monitor beeped steadily beside her, a quiet reminder that she was still here, still breathing, still alive. And for the first time in a long while, she wasn't just surviving the silence. She was learning how to stay in it. What if healing wasn't something that happened quietly, but something that demanded confrontation? Morning came in layers. First the hum of the hospital waking up, then light slipping through the blinds in thin, indifferent lines. Sarah didn't sleep so much as drift, in and out of shallow rest, the kind where dreams never fully form but memories circle close enough to feel their breath. She woke with her jaw clenched. The instinct to catalog threats kicked in immediately. Where am I? Who's nearby? What hurts? Shoulder, ribs, wrist, all manageable. She exhaled slowly, forcing her body to stand down. This wasn't Helmand. This wasn't a tent with dust blowing through the seams. This was a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and coffee. Dr. Chen was already there, quietly reviewing her chart. He looked up when he noticed she was awake. "Rough night?" he asked. She didn't sugarcoat it. "Not great." He nodded, unsurprised. "That tracks." Frank was asleep in the chair by the wall, head tilted back, mouth slightly open. He must have stayed longer than he planned. The sight stirred something uncomfortable in her chest, gratitude mixed with guilt. She wasn't used to people staying for her. Dr. Chen followed her gaze. He didn't want to leave. She swallowed. He shouldn't feel responsible. "He doesn't," Chen said gently. "He cares. There's a difference." That word again. Care. She built her whole life around giving it. Receiving it felt like standing in unfamiliar terrain without a map. A nurse came in to check vitals. Sarah flinched when the blood pressure cuff tightened unexpectedly, irritation flashing across her face before she could stop it. The nurse noticed. "Sorry," she said softly. "I'll count you down next time." Sarah nodded, embarrassed. Hypervigilance, another box checked. When the nurse left, Dr. Chen closed the chart. "I want to talk about discharge." Sarah tensed automatically. "I can walk." "I know," he said calmly. "This isn't about capability, it's about sustainability." She looked away. "I don't have time to fall apart." "You don't have time not to," he replied. The words stung, because they echoed something she'd said to others 100 times. He continued, "You're cleared medically to go home later today, but there are conditions." She turned back wary, such as pain management, physical therapy, and follow-up with a trauma specialist. There it was, the thing she'd been skirting all night. "I've done therapy," she said. "It didn't stick." "Did you let it?" he asked, not unkindly. She didn't answer. Frank stirred, waking slowly. "What I miss?" Sarah pretending she's fine, Dr. Chen said dryly. Frank smiled. "She's consistent." Sarah rolled her eyes, then winced when it tugged at her ribs. Frank noticed immediately. "See," he said, "you react faster to pain than you admit." She sighed. "Occupational hazard." Frank leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Sarah, I want you to hear this from someone who's been on the other side of the circle." She braced herself. "When you help us, you're incredible," he said. "But when you refuse help yourself, it sends a message you don't intend." "What message?" she asked. "That some pain is acceptable, that some people don't get to rest, that strength means silence." She felt the weight of that settle uncomfortably. She'd never thought of it that way, never considered that her example might be shaping others more than her words. Dr. Chen nodded. "Leadership isn't just what you do in crisis, it's what you model afterward." The room was quiet again, but this time it felt intentional. Later that afternoon, Marcus stopped by before heading home. He looked different, still cautious, but less hollow. "I tried the breathing again," he said, "when I woke up." "And?" Sarah asked. "It worked," he said, surprised. "I still felt it, but it didn't take over." She smiled, small but genuine. "That's progress." He hesitated. "I talked to one of the other guys from group, told him what you taught me." Her smile faded into something deeper. "How did that go?" "He listened," Marcus said he'd try it." Frank raised an eyebrow at her. "See, already multiplying." Marcus shifted his weight. "I meant what I said last night, about helping. I'm in, if you'll have me." She studied him carefully, not assessing his weakness, but his readiness, his honesty, his willingness to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. "I'll have you," she said, "but we do this the right way, training, boundaries, backup." He nodded eagerly. "Yes, ma'am." She caught herself before correcting him. Some habits took time. When Marcus left, Dr. Chen handed her discharge papers. "I'll walk you through this." As he explained medications and appointments, she listened closely, asking questions. really listening. It felt strange, being the one receiving instructions instead of giving them, but she stayed with it. When it was time to go, Frank helped her into a jacket. The simple act nearly undid her. She covered it with a joke. "Guess I'm officially high maintenance now." Frank smiled. "Welcome to the club." The ride home was quiet. City streets rolled past the window, ordinary and safe in a way that once felt impossible. Every stoplight made her tense. Every sudden noise sent a flicker of adrenaline through her system. She noticed it all now. Didn't judge it, just noticed. At her apartment, Frank insisted on carrying her bag. "I'm fine," she protested. "I know," he said, "humor me." Inside, the space felt too still. No radios, no phones ringing, no one needing anything from her. The silence pressed in. Frank stood awkwardly by the door. "You want company." Part of her wanted to say no, to retreat into solitude where she could manage the spiral privately. Another part, quieter, braver, answered first. "Yeah," she said, "for a bit." They sat on the couch, the TV on but muted, just presence, just shared space. Her breathing slowed, her shoulders dropped an inch. After a while, she spoke without looking at him. "I don't know who I am if I'm not fixing things." Frank considered that. Maybe you're someone who's allowed to exist even when nothing's on fire. The idea felt radical. That night, alone in her bed, she followed the plan. Medication, breathing, grounding. When memories surfaced, she didn't shove them away. She acknowledged them, named them, let them pass like weather. Sleep came in fragments, but it came. In the dark, she thought of the valley again. But this time, she also thought of the hospital room, of Marcus breathing through panic, of Frank staying, of Dr. Chen not flinching when she showed the cracks. Healing, she realized, wasn't passive. It asked questions. It challenged identities. It demanded honesty. And it didn't happen all at once. As she drifted off, one thought stayed with her, steady, unfamiliar, and strangely hopeful. She didn't have to earn rest. She was allowed to recover. And tomorrow, for the first time in a long time, she would wake up without immediately bracing for impact. That felt like the beginning of something worth protecting. Why did the hardest battles begin after the uniform was folded away? The first morning alone tested her more than the night ever could. Sarah woke before dawn, heart already racing as if she'd overslept for something critical. Her eyes snapped open, scanning the room. Bedroom, civilian walls, no radio crackling, no boots lined by the door, just quiet, deep, unforgiving. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the familiar surge of urgency to tell her what to do next. Nothing came. The absence felt wrong, dangerous. For years, her days had started with purpose already assigned. Someone needed help, something needed fixing, a problem that couldn't wait. Now there was only the soft tick of a clock and the dull ache of healing bones reminding her she was still tethered to her own body. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and paused when pain flared through her ribs. Sharp, immediate, real. So this is what slowing down feels like, she thought. In the kitchen, she poured coffee with careful movements, every step deliberate. The smell was grounding, familiar. She wrapped both hands around the mug, letting the warmth sink into her palms. For a moment, she allowed herself to just stand there. No scanning, no planning, just breathing. It lasted all of 30 seconds before her phone buzzed. Her chest tightened instantly. A reflexive surge of adrenaline flooded her system as she reached for it, ready to triage, to prioritize, to respond. Then she stopped. Frank's voice echoed in her head. "Leadership is what you model afterward." She looked at the screen. A message from the group chat, not a crisis, just a check-in, someone asking if tonight's meeting was still on. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. Old Sarah would have answered immediately, taken charge, reassured everyone. Instead, she set the phone down. Marcus will handle it, she told herself. That's the point. The anxiety didn't disappear. It coiled tighter, whispering that she was being irresponsible, selfish, weak. She recognized the voice now, not truth, conditioning. She exhaled slowly, counting the way she'd taught others. 1, 2, 3. The phone buzzed again, this time a private message. Marcus, I've got tonight covered. Don't worry, focus on healing. She stared at the words longer than necessary. Someone else had stepped up. The world hadn't collapsed. Something in her chest loosened, just a fraction. Physical therapy began later that morning. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and effort. The therapist, a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes, explained the plan without drama. Range of motion, strength, patience. Patience, Sarah learned quickly, was the hardest part. Her shoulder resisted. Muscles protested movements that once felt effortless. Sweat gathered at her temples, frustration simmering beneath the surface. You're fighting it, the therapist observed. Sarah clenched her jaw. I'm trying. I know, she said gently, but healing isn't combat. You can't force it into submission. The words struck deeper than intended. On the drive home, Sarah replayed them. Healing isn't combat. In combat, pain was information, something to override, ignore, push through. Here, pain was a boundary, one she was supposed to respect. That afternoon, she tried to rest. Actually rest. Not the half-sleep she'd perfected, alert even in stillness, but real rest. Her mind rebelled. Memories crept in the moment her body relaxed. Faces, names, moments froze in mid-chaos. She felt the familiar pull to get up, distract herself, clean something, check her phone. Instead, she stayed. Her breathing quickened, hands trembled. This is stupid, the old voice hissed. Get up, do something useful. But another voice, new, quieter, answered back. You are doing something useful. She placed a hand over her chest, feeling the uneven rhythm of her heart. Grounding. Name what's real. Couch. Window, sunlight, the ache in her shoulder, the sound of traffic outside. The wave passed. Not gone, but manageable. That night, she didn't attend the group meeting for the first time in over a year. She expected guilt to crush her. Instead, what came was emptiness. She paced her apartment, restless energy buzzing under her skin. Every instinct screamed that she should be there, that someone might need her. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, meeting went well. One guy had a rough moment. We handled it, used the techniques. He stayed. Sarah sat down hard on the couch. They handled it. Tears surprised her, blurring the screen. Not from sadness, from relief, from the realization that the weight she'd been carrying alone could actually be shared. She typed back slowly. Proud of you, proud of all of you. A pause, then another message. Marcus, we learned from the best. She closed her eyes, letting the words settle without deflecting them. Days passed, then a week. Healing wasn't linear. Some mornings she woke steady. Others she woke already exhausted, emotions raw and unguarded. Therapy sessions peeled back layers she'd reinforced for years. Talking about the valley, really talking about it, left her drained in ways physical pain never had. One session hit particularly hard. Her therapist asked a simple question. What would you say to the Sarah who walked out of that valley? The answer caught in her throat. She imagined that version of herself, dust-covered, bloodied, still moving despite everything screaming to stop. I'd tell her, Sarah's voice wavered, I'd tell her she did enough. The tears came then, heavy, uncontrolled. Saying it out loud felt like breaking a rule she'd lived by for years. At home afterward, she sat on the floor, back against the couch, letting the grief roll through her. No fixing, no reframing, just feeling. When it passed, she felt wrung out and strangely lighter. The next group meeting she joined remotely, not to lead, just to listen. Marcus facilitated with steady confidence. Others spoke up more freely now, filling the space she used to occupy alone. They supported each other, interrupted spirals, shared strategies. Sarah muted herself at one point, overwhelmed by pride and something dangerously close to peace. After the call, Frank checked in. "Still breathing?" he asked. She laughed softly. "Yeah," barely recognized the group in a good way. "That's growth," he said. "Uncomfortable, necessary." She hesitated. "Do you ever miss the old version of yourself?" Frank was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes, but I don't miss the cost." That night, Sarah stood on her balcony, city lights stretching out below. For years, she'd measured her worth by how indispensable she was, by how much pain she could absorb for others. Now, standing there, she wondered what it might mean to build a life that didn't require constant sacrifice to justify its existence. The thought scared her. It also felt like freedom. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus, sent privately. "I helped someone tonight the way you helped me. I don't think I would have survived my first panic attack without you. Thank you for trusting me with this." She reread it several times. Trusting me. That was the shift, she realized. Not stepping away, but trusting others to carry what she once carried alone. As she went inside, shoulder aching, heart full and fragile, one truth settled deeper than the rest. Her strength had never been silence. It had been connection. And now, finally, she was learning to receive it. What happens when the silence finally stops feeling like a threat? It wasn't dramatic, no sudden revelation, no single moment where everything clicked into place. It happened quietly, on an ordinary morning, when Sarah realized she'd slept through the night. Not drifted, not hovered half awake listening for danger, slept. The realization startled her more than any nightmare ever had. She lay there for a moment, heart steady, breathing slow, almost afraid to move in case it shattered whatever fragile balance she'd found. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, soft and unhurried. Her body ached, yes, but it was the honest ache of healing, not the sharp edge of survival. She sat up slowly. No immediate panic. No mental checklist screaming for attention. Just presence. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding for years. The day unfolded without urgency. Coffee, stretching exercises, a short walk outside, her first alone since the injury. Every sound still registered sharply, but it no longer hijacked her nervous system. A car backfired down the street and she froze, then breathed, grounded, stayed. Progress didn't feel heroic. It felt human. Later that afternoon, she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the sleeve over her healing shoulder. The uniform was gone, had been for a while. Civilian clothes still felt strange, like borrowed skin, but today they didn't feel wrong. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus, we're meeting in person tonight. Small group. Would mean a lot if you came, no pressure." She stared at the message. Part of her wanted to decline, not from fear, but from respect for the space she'd created by stepping back. Another part knew this wasn't about control anymore. It was about showing up honestly. She typed back, "I'll come to listen." The community center was modest. Fluorescent lights, folding chairs, a circle that once felt like a battlefield she had to command. Tonight she took a seat like everyone else. No introductions were made for her. No one turned to her for permission. And the world didn't end. Marcus opened the meeting with steady calm. His voice wasn't perfect, but it was real. People spoke, shared small victories, setbacks. A man admitted he'd finally gone grocery shopping without bolting for the exit. A woman talked about sitting through her daughter's school play despite the noise. Ordinary courage. When it was Sarah's turn, she hesitated. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because she finally understood the weight of words. "I used to think strength meant being the last one standing," she said quietly. "The one who didn't break, the one who carried everyone else." A few heads nodded. I was wrong, she continued. Strength is letting yourself be seen, letting yourself rest, letting others step in. Her voice caught, but she didn't stop. I'm still learning, every day, and some days are harder than others, but I'm here. Not because I have the answers, but because I need the same things you do. Silence followed. Then someone spoke. Thank you for saying that. The meeting ended without ceremony. People lingered, laughed softly, made plans, life continuing. Outside, Marcus walked with her toward the parking lot. You didn't take over, he said, smiling. I noticed. She smiled back. Neither did you panic. He laughed fair. They stood there for a moment, the evening air cool and grounding. I meant what I said before, Marcus added, about trusting me. You didn't just teach techniques. You showed me what it looks like to survive without disappearing. The words landed gently. No guilt, no burden. Just meaning. At home that night, Sarah sat by the window, city lights blinking steadily below. She thought about the valley, not with dread but with clarity. It would always be part of her, a chapter written in scars and choices, but it no longer defined the whole story. She thought about the medic she used to be, the operative who never hesitated, the woman who believed silence was the price of dignity. She forgave her. Forgave the way she'd survived the only way she knew how. The phone rang. Frank. So he said, how'd it go? She leaned back, eyes closing, different in the best way. He chuckled, you sound lighter. I feel lighter, she admitted. Still sore, still figuring things out, but lighter. That's called living, Frank said. After the call, she prepared for bed. The routine no longer felt like a checklist, it felt like care. She paused before turning off the light, catching her reflection one last time. There were lines on her face now, not just from age, but from endurance, from learning hard truths and surviving them. She wasn't invisible anymore. Not to others, not to herself. As she lay down, memories stirred, but they no longer demanded silence. They existed, coexisted, part of her, not all of her. Sleep came softly, and in that quiet a final truth settled, clear and unshakable. Sometimes dignity doesn't shout. Sometimes it doesn't wear medals or uniforms. Sometimes it doesn't even speak. Sometimes dignity simply acts. By choosing to stay. By choosing to heal. And by choosing to let the silence become a place of peace, instead of a place of pain.